The world's out there thinking that they've got it all together, but really a lot of people out there don't have it together. They just push it down. And, some people say, I don't need God, I've done everything. He hasn't helped me. Every breath's His. Every breath's His. I was thinking this week, we went away a couple of weeks ago and we went for a swim up North Coast, and I was thinking about this. The wave is coming right at church. Get the surfboard out. The things in God are there for us to discover. Yeah. It's up to us if we want to discover them. It's up to us if we really want to desire and seek the things of God, the deep things of God. And when we were up at the North Coast, we were getting washed around by the waves, and at the beginning there, it was just tossing us around and the shallow, and they're only little waves. They're just annoying little fellas. Who's been out there in those little waves? They just knock you around, you just get annoyed with them, And you think, man, that's so good. So I'm looking out in the deep, and I'm seeing out in the deep there's some lovely swells, ready to come up, and some waves coming through where you could just get on the board. We didn't have a board there. We had body surfing, And so we're just looking at those waves, and I thought, man, I've got to get out in the deep. If I get out in the deep, I'm going to experience the wave that I'm looking for. I'm going to experience the wave to bring me in and just to be enjoyed. And all this annoying little stuff around me, I've got to get through that. Who knows that the wave of the Spirit, when it comes, when we ride the wave of the Spirit, God's wave, that's when we discover the depths of God. You see, we could be here on the shore and we can look at all these little waves and think, yeah. But sometimes you've got to go through these little troubles, the little irritations, the little places that you get all your pants full of sand and all the little biteys that are flicking around and everything to get out into the deep. And times in life we go through some trials and tribulations, as Paul teaches us and so on, that we need to understand that we need to go through. But you've got to keep your eye on where you want to go. You've got to have some wisdom too, that you can actually get there, that you're ready to get there. Some people try to go forward and catch the big wave of the Spirit, but really you haven't really even done any groundwork to get yourself ready for it, some prayer, and really go for it so you last. Who knows that when you get in a big wave, you last a lot longer than those little waves. You can cruise along on those waves for a while if you catch the right one. On the little waves, they just break, and they break, it's all over. They look good, but they don't last long. Things in life sometimes look good, it doesn't last long. It's the depth that you need to get with God. It's the depths that we need to ride the waves in. Remember one time down the Gold Coast, I was sitting there and there was a rip. It was like shallow, going down the shallow, and then it was up. Never forget it. It's just times in your life, And you know how someone's standing there and they're just ankle deep? They just stand there like this. And here's a gutter, and I'm swimming in this gutter, trying to get to this person, trying to get up on this little bankment. I'm going for it, but the waves are pushing me, the current's so strong that I couldn't get there. And here I am, I'm right against there. This is where I am, about this height, and there's a guy standing there. And I'm going, and I couldn't get there. And I thought, I'm going to drown because I couldn't touch the bottom. I'm going to drown. I'm going for it. Instead of saying, hey, mate, can you give us a hand? I'm just going for it. And he's ankle deep. And I think to myself, you dodo. I reckon it was God, because I was at the end. I was just about to say, mate. And he said, turn around and swim with it. So I just turned around and went back in. Not thinking. We've got to be prepared for the things of God. God wants to bring a wave of the Spirit on and great blessings in our life, but if we're not ready for it, it's just going to get blown away. God wants you to prepare, to get your word, to get your prayer ready. So that way when it comes, we can ride it for a while. We can last in it. We know how to ride the waves. When you're out in the deep, you can see so much more. There's so much more to see. You can dive. You can go around. Hopefully no sharks. Every time you go there, you hear that music. And you think, man, I'm out too deep. It just starts in my ears all the time. You know? So, but you're out there and you can see so far and so distant, you know, you can see it all. And the things in God, when we get out in the deep things of God, we can actually see a little bit more in the Spirit. It's not all murked up by the things that are facing it right there. James, in the book of James, if you want to go to there this morning. I'll talk to you about some things on the road to life, you know. If we're going to experience the deep things of the Spirit, how are we going to do that? How are we going to move into that? This morning, I believe God wants us to pray for the sick this morning. God's going to do some great things in people's lives. We're going to put some faith in action and allow God to be God, because God says He's the same yesterday, today, and forever. He healed before, He heals now, He'll heal tomorrow. On the road to life, you know, we find opposition in our life. If you lived anything on this life, you'll find that you have opposition facing you, and you'll face choices and you'll face rewards. And when opposition comes in our life, what do we do with that opposition? That's what's important. How do we treat it? What do we do from it? Do we learn from it? How do we get through it? What choices do you make? Because choices, I believe, is one of the most powerful words you have. You have a choice to say yes or no or whatever, and that choice will determine if you get rewarded or you get hammered. That's just life. James chapter 1, verses 12. It says there this, it says, "Blessed is the man who perseveres under trial. Because when he has stood the test, he will receive the crown of life that God has promised to those who love him." He's not saying tests won't come. There will come tests. And we need to stand firm in those tests so that we can experience the crown of life. Goes on to say in verse 13, when tempted, not if you're tempted, but when tempted. We all get tempted. In life, there's temptations in life. If you're alive, you'll be tempted because of the old sinful nature. It could be even getting tempted to go skydiving. I got tempted to go skydiving when my daughter went, but then I thought about the stomach drop and I said, I'm not tempted anymore. It doesn't entice me anymore. I'm dead to that jump, you know what I'm saying? Now, she's alive to the jumps and she's going for another one. Can't believe it. But we all go through times in our life where there's testings and trials and there's things that come against us. And, you know, the enemy will use your mind to get in there and he'll try to look for a stronghold or a weakness that you have, and he'll play upon that. And then you have the choice what you're going to do with that. The thought, the temptation. See, David was a person who, when he was king, he looked down and he saw a lady bathing naked on the roof. What he should have did is said, whoop, back inside. But that's not what he did. He made a choice. Got his binoculars out. No, there wasn't any binoculars in those days. He just said, bring her to me. So he started to act on the very thing that was in his heart. And he thought, bring her to me. And he brought the girl to him, the lady, and then he had sex with her, got her pregnant, killed her husband, tried to hide it, then the baby died, and death came because of a wrong decision. When we come to a point in our life where we know right and wrong, he knew what was right and wrong. God says, you're a man after my own heart. We know what's right and wrong. God says the laws of God are written in our hearts. We know what we shouldn't steal or covet, or we shouldn't lie or murder. And we know all that's not right. But you know what? When temptations come to you, if you're dead to it, it doesn't entice you. If you've died to the thing, like you could come and ask me, do I want a salted licorice? And I would say, no, thank you, because I've died to that taste. I don't want it, doesn't entice me. But Sue loves salted licorice. You go, Sue, you want salted licorice? Oh, yeah. She likes salted licorice. It's different. Whatever you're tempted with, if you're alive to it, and you know it's wrong, it has to be destroyed. And that's the way you get through these trials and tribulations that face us. What you do with it, it's like if you go along and you're driving along, guys, and you see a lady and you go, ooh, right? Not sin. But the second one, ooh, is. I'm telling you. They said once that, women are the biggest magnet in the world and men are the biggest lump of tin. You have to control your heart, your thoughts. You see something, people sometimes just want to steal things and they have the opportunity and they look there and they go, man, there's an opportunity there. But if you're dead to it, it doesn't bother you. I was in the shopping centre only 2 weeks ago, weren't we, when a flashy little sports car was sitting there with all the windows down, remember? We're in the shopping centre and we just go out and here's this really flashy car. I mean, it must be worth a couple $100,000. And it's sitting there and they've got the windows down and they've got their, really expensive sunglasses sitting there and all the other stuff all over the seats, all unlocked. And I'm thinking, my goodness, people have just walked off and not realised that the window's down. Now, if that was my old man when I was 19, that would not be there and the car probably would not be there. But being saved and dying of that, there's no temptation. I'm thinking, should I go in there and wind the window up and lock the door for him? And then I think, as soon as I touch it, Sue says, you'll get an alarm go off and we'll be in trouble. So all we could do is just pray and say, God, protect you with your angels and head off. What could you do? But when you die to something, there's no more temptation and then you can just move on in life. So what are you doing with things that come in your heart? Verse 10, he says, when tempted, no one should say, God is tempting me. Hear that. For God cannot be tempted by evil, nor does he tempt anyone. Good to know. God's not testing you. God's not whacking you with a stick and putting bad things in your life so he can teach you a lesson. That's not what God's about. He's not a bad father that is going to pull things upon you and then just say, now I'm going to teach you a lesson through that, son. But through life, we go through trials and tribulations, and sometimes we make wrong choices in life. And then through that circumstance, we have things happen to us. And then God uses those circumstances to help us to understand the love of God through that, and maybe for us not to do it next time. But he doesn't bring stuff on us in this way. Listen to this. It says, verse 14, but each one is tempted when his own evil desires are dragged away. He's dragged away and enticed. Then after desire is conceived, it gives birth to sin. And sin, when it's fully grown, gives birth to death. Exactly what happened with David. Exactly what happened to Judas.